Hi, today we are back with our Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous Unfair Companion Build Guide, and we are going to do Woljif. If you are new to the series and don't know how we do our builds, they are all made for unfair difficulty and none of them exploit bugs, so they should all remain viable despite any bug fixes or patches made to the game. It's also worth mentioning that all my builds are tested from early to late levels. They are not made just for the sake of YouTube videos. I do them firstly for my own unfair playthroughs, and it's very important to me that they are actually effective at every level in the game, so I can actually get through with my playthroughs and not just remain the helm of theory crafting. Because this is a turn-based system, but the game is real time with pause, sometimes builds don't go as I'd expect them, and that's why I think the testing is important, so I can both bring you the best builds and actually be able to beat the game on unfair difficulty, which is my main goal. With all that out of the way, let's get to our builds. Woljif is a bit rough to build. His early levels, his first 3 levels, are terrible, just terrible. His stats are good, dexterity and intelligence, there are a lot of good things you can do with that, but two weapon fighting, Eldritch Scoundrel certainly isn't one of them. Having two weapon fighting feats chosen is very rough. The double slice in my opinion is completely uncalled for, and weakening wound is a waste of a feat again, so this start is just so bad. If you want to use the things he already has, the best option is probably Vivisectionist, the only one remotely viable, I'd say, but even that isn't that good in my opinion. It doesn't really cut it on unfair. Your only source of damage is mostly sneak attacks. Then you find an enemy that's immune to sneak attacks and you don't do anything. I know there are not that many enemies immune to sneak attack, but yeah, against some bosses you'll just be completely useless. Even going Vivisectionist, if I were to go the Alchemist route, I'd much rather go Grenadier, so that you have a lower damage in regular fights, but you do much better against bosses, being able to target touch AC, doing okay damage with your bombs. Or even Synthetizer, you give up a bit of damage, but gain a lot in support and ways to increase your party's damage. But I wanted to try on my first playthrough the Arcanist Brown Fur Transmuter class, to see how it did, and in my opinion it did really well. It's a great support, brings a lot of utility that no other class has. So in our first level up we go straight for Arcanist Brown Fur Transmuter, and it's a slow start, like any full caster, but we start as a full caster only on level 4, so an even slower start. We are not putting ability points into intelligence, we are putting them to dexterity, so that we have a better chance of hitting our ray spells and also our Arcanist exploits. The first one we take is Sonic Blast. There are very few enemies who resist Sonic, so this way you are able to do a little bit of damage. Then we take as a feat on level 5, Point Blank Shot, so you'll be able to actually hit your ranged attacks, followed by Precise Shot on level 7. On level 7 we also get Powerful Change. This is a very powerful ability. Now you are able to empower your reduced person and enlarged person, so they give extra +2 bonus to either strength or dexterity, but you can also empower the aspect spells. The Cat's Grace boosts strength, All's Wisdom, so you can basically give free +6 enhancement bonus to your party's stats. At this point in the game, this is very strong. You start finding +4 belts about a bit later, so it's almost if you had +6 items much earlier, and this is something that is very nice. You can use this to increase your party's saving throws by giving them aspect of the owl for will saves, aspect of the bear for fortitude saves, among other things. I'm not going to showcase any combat for low level because this is mostly a pure support build, but I want to give you an accurate depiction of what it looks like at lower levels. So here we can still only prepare 3 level 1 spells, but we can cast 4, and at level 7 we can only prepare 1 level 2 spell. And in my opinion, that's not too useful just yet. If you have a lot of characters that use the same stat, maybe a lot of characters that rely just on dexterity or just on strength, then he can be a little bit more useful. But for me, he was kind of an on and off in my party, at least until he got greater enduring spells and a few more casts. I think it was about level 10 where he really became a staple in my party. Also, don't underestimate the power of powerful change. It might be just a +2 increase to the stat bonus on the transmutation spells, but that equals to quite a lot of damage for your party members. The +2 basically equals a 5% damage increase it increases your main damage stat. So if you have someone that relies on strength to do damage and hit, then the +2 is basically a 5% increase to its damage, and you can get +2 from the size increasing spells in Reduce and Enlarge Person, and another +2 from the enhancement increasing spells. So in total you can get quite early on basically a 10% damage increase to a lot of your party members. So this is a strong build, but because it has so few spells to prepare, it takes a while before it really becomes useful. Then we keep going. Brown Fruit Transmuter, here we get Force Strike. Then we get Wooden Flash. This is mostly for immunities. Wooden Flash makes so that you count as a plant creature for purposes of spells. So now you are immune to Hold Person, for example, among a few other spells that don't affect plant creatures. So this is very nice, gives you a lot of immunities. Then in terms of feats, we go for Spell Penetration and Greater Spell Penetration. After we get those, we have a better chance of hitting our actual ray spells. Mostly we are going to use Battering Blast for damage, and before that we were mostly using Sonic Blast or even Force Strike for damage, because the Arcanist exploits don't require spell penetration rolls, so you could still use them and hit without that much of a problem. And when we get here to level 12, Arcanist level 9, we get Shared Transmutation. And that's the most important feature from Brown Fruit Transmuter. Now we can make spells of range personal be cast on others, so things like Elemental Body, Frightful Aspect, Event Transformation, and some others. So this gives a lot of nice utility options no other class has, and now that we have this, there's not that much reason to keep going Arcanist. So by this point, you need to have the requisites for Arcane Trickster, so 4 points in Knowledge Arcana, Mobility, and Trickery. Then at your level 13, it's going to be your first Arcane Trickster level. We also take Metamagic Bolster, and we keep going Arcane Trickster until level 20. Then we take Accomplished Sneak Attacker to increase damage, Improved Critical Ray, also to increase our damage, and finally, Empower Spell. So this makes our full 20 levels. By the end we have a total of 7 die of sneak attack. Something I failed to mention in my other video. Sneak attacks and ray spells are still bugged. It's bugged since the launch of Pathfinder Kingmaker, so I don't know if it's ever going to be fixed. But it does a lot more damage than it should, so I'm not really a fan of going Arcane Trickster in actual damage dealers. I do it sometimes on a more support oriented build like Woljif, so they at least do a little bit of damage. But the way ray spells and sneak attack should work is that ray spells only trigger sneak attack on the first hit. The other ones shouldn't add sneak attack damage. So you actually get a lot more damage than you should on this game because sneak attack gets added to every attack of ray spells. So this is a bug I don't like to exploit too much, that's why I don't use Arcane Trickster very often, unless it's in a build that's not going to be attacking very much anyway. And that's basically our build here. We don't do a lot of damage. We aren't going to be casting that many offensive spells. Even at late game, we are still using at a lot of times our Arcanist exploits for damage. I know they stop scaling once we switch to Arcane Trickster, but they do add sneak attack damage, so it's almost as if they had normal scaling from going full Arcanist, so they are still decent for damage even at late levels. Now for Mythic ranks, we went for Enduring and Greater Enduring spells first. We are mostly a support build and we want our buffs to last 24 hours. Then we go for Full Reservoir because our Powerful Change is our most useful ability and we want to be able to empower all of our buffs. So the extra charges on our reservoir are very welcome. At level 4 we get Spell Penetration Mythic. This way we actually have a chance of overcoming spell penetration and hitting some damage spells. Then we start going the Abundant Casting line and take a break at level 6 just so we can get Last Stand. I always recommend you take Last Stand on every build for unfair difficulty. And then we finish off the Abundant Casting line, take Inspirational Leader. If you already have this with someone else, then you can go for a favorite meta magic on either Bolster or Empower, whichever one you prefer. And last we take Mythic Sneak Attacker for some extra damage. For spells we have a lot of utility. Here we start of course with Enlarge Person, Reduce Person, but Hurricane Bow is a very strong first level spell. Because of our level 9 feature, we are able to cast Hurricane Bow on others. This way, if a ranged damage dealer doesn't have access to Hurricane Bow, we can use it for them and increase their damage by quite a bit. Then at level 2, of course we have Boost Strength, Cat's Grace, Soul's Wisdom, and so on. Remember that this class can learn spells from scrolls, so don't limit yourself by the spell choices by level, and just learn them from scrolls, it's much faster. And also remember, you can enhance them with Powerful Change, making them a +6 enhancement bonus to stats. Bone Shaker is Our best early game damage dealing spell, it's a fortitude save, not that many enemies have a high fortitude, and it's a okay amount of damage. Then we get our best damage dealing spell for later in the game in Battering Blast. And there are not that other many useful spells. Greater Magic Weapon is good, but since we are 3 caster level behind, we are not the best option for casting this in my opinion. We also have Haste and Heroism. At level 4 we get Elemental Body, which we can cast on others because of our 9th level feature. Enlarge Person Mass and Reduce Person Mass are good because we can save casts of our powerful change this way by using only one to enhance everybody's reduce or enlarge person at one cast only. At level 5 we get Animal Growth, Elemental Body 2 and even Echolocation, which we can cast on others. Baleful Polymorph I find good. It's a fortitude save, there are many enemies with low fortitude and you can actually hit this if you choose your targets right. At level 6 we get Bull Strength, Cat's Grace and other similar spells in their mass version. Again, that's good because it saves casts of our powerful charge feature. We also get Transformation, which we can cast on others, True Seeing and Heroism Greater, all good support spells. We have Hellfire Ray, but really I'd rather just use our Meta Magic Bolster and Empower Battering Blast. At level 7 we get Ice Body, Legendary Proportions and Resonating Word, again a fortitude save. If you choose enemies with low fortitude, you have a decent chance of landing this. And at level 8 we have Angelic Aspect, some nice immunities, Acid and Cold. There is a good amount of enemies who do cold damage late game, and being able to cast this on others may save you a lot of damage. Then we have Frightful Aspect, which we can cast on others, and Mind Blank is a nice support spell as well. There's nothing too special here in equipment, it's a more support oriented build. So just a dexterity belt. A headband of mental perfection is better than a +6 to intelligence in my opinion, because our Arcanist exploits rely on charisma, and it's nice to have an increase in charisma because of that. Spell penetration, bonus to skill checks. This dagger is nice, it increases our battering blast damage. And also Metamagic Rods, always welcome. I like this one in special because it converts damage to unholy. This way, even though we don't have the Mythic ability that makes you bypass elemental damage immunities, you can still use elemental spells by converting their damage to unholy with Devouring Lust. So with this, your Hellfire Rays get much stronger, and you can choose some other spells, even Scorching Ray if you want, and cast them with Devouring Lust. This build's biggest strength is not its combat, it's the utility. And I think it works really well when you have 1 or 2 animal companions that are there mostly for tanking. You can extend their utility by a lot using Elemental Body to increase their AC, as well as Ice Body to give them some immunities, including immunity to criticals. But just to show you the damage you can do, let's take a look. So here we did a decent amount of damage. This is empowered and bolstered. For some reason we are not triggering sneak attack. There has been a bug with sneak attack and raise spells going on for a while. You can see it says it's a sneak attack, but it doesn't get added sneak attack to the damage. We should do a bit more damage, but even late game your damage is not bad. Your chance to hit though is not the best. You can see here we have a 25, but our chance to overcome spell resistance is not that bad. So this is basically it for my Woljif build video. It's mostly a support that brings a lot of utility and later on can get some hits in. Tell me what you thought. If you ever tried the Brownfur Transmuter class, did you also like it? And until the next one, I hope you have a good time.